Welcome to Mahara Hui Online, the very first Mahara Hui that we are hosting online that I know of and that we are calling Mahara Hui Online. This one is the Oceania edition, geared towards our community members here in Aotearoa, New Zealand and Australia, and further afield, also in Asia. So I welcome everybody who has come along to our session today, also those from Europe, and look forward to holding this with you. So to center us all in this session, because it's also a 2-hour session where we are talking about portfolios and Mahara, I would like us to start with a karakia. But I'm going to read. So on the left-hand side, we see the te reo words, and on the right-hand side, you see a rough English translation. And a karakia is a traditional start of a meeting so that we get into the frame of working together now on our topic, engaging together. And then at the end, we also have a karakia, which then releases us back into the rest of our day. Whaia te mataranga kia marama. Kia whai takina mahi katoa. Tu maia, tu kaha, aroha atu, aroha mai, tato ia tato katoa. Yora. So today, what we are going to do is that we have a fantastic lineup of people from our community here in our session. And we at Catalyst wanted to create an event where everybody from the community can come together online in a brief session so we can share our experiences with Mahara and for our community members to learn what others in their region are doing with Mahara and with portfolios, so that there might be some cooperation possibilities going on. And also for our development team actually here in the Mahara, at Catalyst in the Mahara team, to learn more of how the software that we are developing is being used in many different contexts. And so my name is Christina Höppner, and I'm the project lead of the Mahara team. We do also have a number of our team members here on the call today. And if you can't spot them yet or haven't seen their names on any tickets yet, they are Doris, Yvonne, Mark, Phil, and Robert is working on something else, I think, right now. But we also have our colleague, Sam Taylor, from our European office with us today. So on the agenda today is that we are having a show and tell, kind of really important to hear from you. We'll have 3 short presentations by Michelle, Rob, Ingrid and Bill, and if there's time, we'll also hear a little bit from another university who could not come today because they're just grading 200 exams and 200 portfolios actually. And so I can give you a brief update from them. And what we'll do is we'll have all 3 presentations right one after the other so that all of them have time to do their presentation. And afterwards, we can ask all the presenters questions. Following on from that, I'll give a brief update on Mahara 2504 and an update on the roadmap, and also a brief outlook on the refresh for Mahara 2604. We'll then close up with some upcoming events and any questions that you might have or anything else that you might want to share. So also, if you hadn't signed up for a show and tell, but do want to say how you have been using Mahara, I'm sure there will be some time to do that as well impromptu. But now let's go into our show and tell. So I'm really excited that we have these 3 presentations from Michelle Zheng, the University of Nottingham in China. And I'm just going to mute again the phone number, who is going to talk about empowering reflection and assessment. That will be followed by Dr. Rob Lowney from Dublin City University in Ireland, who's going to talk about group portfolio submissions, of which some of you have definitely been looking forward to already. And we'll also have a presentation by Dr. Ingrid and Bill Mezzetti from Monash University in Australia, who have entitled their presentation very intriguingly with "There's a New Sheriff in Town, Mahara at Monash." So I'm going to hand over to Michelle, our first presenter.
Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Zheng. I am a learning technology consultant at the University of Nottingham, Ningbo, China, or UNNC for short. It's truly an honor to be here today as the first presenter. Today, I will share with you 2 case studies that our university academics are using Mahara for empowering reflection and assessment in recent years. Okay, so first, let me introduce you a little bit about our university. Our university was established in 2004. It is the first Sino-foreign cooperative university in China. The picture is our campus picture, and we are a key member of the University of Nottingham's global educational system. The University of Nottingham has 3 campuses, one in Nottingham, UK, one in Malaysia, and one in China, Ningbo. Currently, our campus has around 10,000 students, with the faculty and the students comes from over 70 countries and regions. All of our teaching programs are taught in English, following a high standard of the UK campus. So to maintain our high education standards, our main digital learning systems, like our learning management system, Moodle, and also Mahara, we all share across our global campuses. So we use one single Mahara site for all 3 campuses. So if we look at the Mahara journey at UNNC, we can see it is heavily dependent on the UK's decisions and procedures. So back in 2016, UK recommended Mahara to us, and we started the initial promotion. At that time, we cooperated with the Career Development Office, and we had some good practice, but due to the lack of version upgrade from 2018 to 2022, we had very limited use on our campus. And the things changed significantly that in 2022, the university partnered with Catalyst, and in early 2023, Catalyst upgrade our Mahara site to 22.10 version and migrated to our site to the Catalyst hosting. So UK shared this improvement with us again, and with the key features of that version, we started to promote Mahara and focused on teaching and assessment this time. So earlier this year, our Mahara and the Moodle integrated and upgrade the Mahara version upgraded to 24.04. So today, the 2 case studies I am sharing with you are good practice that our teachers are using Mahara after our promotion. Okay. All right, the first case study I'd like to share with you actually from business school module. This is a very special practical module that the students have to visit companies in small groups. And after they are visiting, they have to write the group reflections to share their insights and learning. But those reflections weren't graded. That means the reflections didn't count towards the final score. So previously, the student engagement was not so high. And also because the teacher, the module convener also used the very popular social media in China, WeChat. She has the WeChat group to communicate with students daily. But she tried to ask the students to write the reflections in WeChat, but she found the old information just cleared and very hard to make. So after attending one of my Mahara promotion sessions, she approached me and requested whether we could create Mahara something for shared group reflections. And what she wants is easy to navigate and easy to manage. So after discussing, we create a Mahara group for the module, and I just use my admin authority to enroll all the students into her Mahara group. Because we just had 2 years of promotion Mahara, and the Mahara is not a mandatory system at our university. So we think the student might lack of the knowledge of using Mahara. So we decided to do 3 extra things. First is the module convener just wrote the reflection examples after each visit with the vivid image, videos, and text together, and design the layout and help students to understand her expectations and ask them to well prepare before they write the group reflection. And the second thing is that is amazing feature in Mahara I like. It's called copy for existing group members. And according to the content provided by the module convener, I just created an e-portfolio template and use this feature to push the template to all students' account. So that saved the students time to learn Mahara, using Mahara from scratch. Also considering before the low engagement, so the module convener also decide they wrote the Mahara reflection in class. So I did the in-class demo and hands-on support. You can see on the left, the picture was taken in one on-site support. You can see not too many students in the module. There are only around 20 students, and they sat in groups. So after the module convener explained her requirements, and I just demoed the steps, how each group leader needed to do, and did the hand-on support. So, and the right side is the template. You can see the template is very simple, but that gave the students a very clear framework, what kind of things they needed to fill in, okay. The outcome was very surprising because to keep the student privacy, I just omitted their private information. This is one example of the one class reflection. All 5 groups completed the group reflections and shared back with the group. And even the students actually are very, very eager to learn extra features because in that class, I see the students explored a lot of different blogs, features in Mahara by themselves without the content what I mentioned in the demo. So for example, they asked how to use the peer assessment because they enable that, see nothing. So I taught them how to use that. So in one group portfolio, we saw the students, not only the group leader share the contents, the group members share their contributions in the peer assessment blog. Also, we could see the students give the comments, a lot of comments for other groups' portfolio. More surprisingly, some students in that module created their own Mahara groups without involving the module convener in. They said that they needed to do deeper team collaboration by themselves. So that's very good outcome. And I think in the future, we will keep promote Mahara usage on this way and let more academics benefit from this Mahara feature. Okay, so the second case I'd like to share with you is after the Moodle and Mahara integration. This is a new trend that our academics are using Mahara. We have some modules require students to submit diversified formats for one assessment. Like the students, for example, the student needed to upload a video and a text format script, PowerPoint slides, and to submit for one module. And those submissions are counted towards the final score. So before Moodle and Mahara integrated, they had to use different platforms because due to the server capacity of our Moodle, students can't upload large videos directly to Moodle. So they have to use Pinapto, our video platform, to upload the video. Then they go to the Moodle to upload the files. And even if the teachers would like to check the plagiarism, they have to go to the Turnitin, right? So the students face the problem that they are not a little bit confused about what kind of the files they need to upload to which platform. So even they may face to try to learn different files or format to submit different themes, topics. So sometimes the student may also make the submission failures. The instructors also had a problem because they had to open multiple platforms, files together to access just one single assignment. So now the teachers really want a reliable and flexible submission process for grade work. So in earlier this year, Catalyst just make the Mahara and the Moodle integrated. So you can see this screen. This is a Moodle assignment screen. When the module convener wants student to submit a Mahara e-portfolio, they can just tick the Mahara option here. Nothing else they need to do. Even they don't need to learn how to use Mahara. So they can just tick and save changes. The student then could design and add contents in the Mahara. And then when they finish that, they just go back to the Moodle and submit. You can see this is the student view. When student complete Mahara e-portfolios creation, they can click add submission in Moodle, and all the e-portfolios here show up for them. They can select the correct one. After they submit, they can even click on the link to have a review. This is the instructor's view. And you can see now the teachers just needed to click on just one Mahara link, right? And when they open it, there is a Mahara. Yeah, just the final slide, because as I mentioned, the teachers collect the Mahara e-portfolios from students, but the students still do not understand how to use Mahara. So I create an online course in Moodle, and you can see the structure. Yeah, very simple. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah. Very simple, and they can just self-paced to learn the content, and the training or the online course content I designed is totally according to the instructor's requirement. Even in this section, I created a step-by-step guidance and created a test practice Moodle assignment, invited students to have a practice before their official submission. And I enabled the email reminder feature in the Moodle assignment. So if the student need my help one-on-one, so they can say in Moodle assignment as well. So I will give them one-on-one coaching or support. Yeah, I think that's all. Did I exceed the time limit? Thank you very much.
You are all good, Michelle. Thank you so much. Let's continue with Rob.
Hi everybody, my name is Rob Lowney. I'm Senior Learning Technologist at Dublin City University in Ireland, and I want to talk to you a little bit about some work we are undertaking to enhance the experience of submitting group collaborative portfolios from Mahara to Moodle. What I'm going to explore in this presentation is give you a little bit of information about my university and the context in which we're coming from here in DCU, tell you a little bit about the background that has led to this development, and then outline some of our development project plans. So a little bit about DCU, for those of you who don't know much about the university. We're a young, dynamic university founded in 1980, so we're only 45 years old. We are situated across 3 academic campuses in North Dublin City, and our university has roughly 20,000 students and 2,000 staff members. Our university is divided into 5 different faculties: humanities and social sciences, engineering and computing, science and health, business and education. And since our inception, really, the university has been very focused around preparing students for industry, preparing students to go out and contribute to the world and to the workforce. So a lot of our programs, and very much since 1980, have been focused around science and technology, engineering. We then moved into offering nursing programs, education programs, etc. So we're very much about preparing our students for a world that is changing, that is challenging, and increasingly becoming more complex and more unscripted. I myself work in a unit called the Teaching Enhancement Unit in DCU, which is essentially the university's centre for teaching and learning. We primarily support our academic staff here in DCU to develop their teaching excellence. We support them to innovate in their teaching and learning and assessment. We also engage in scholarship of teaching and learning with them and both ourselves within our own team, and really trying to kind of contribute to the literature, contribute to the knowledge base of good educational practice. As well as that, we have another main role, which is to support the institution's learning technology ecosystem. So in some universities, teaching and learning centres might be focused solely on academic development and have no role in the digital side of things. But in our university, we very much firmly believe that technology, learning technology, and academic development all goes hand in hand and is all very much intertwined and enmeshed with one another. In terms of our learning technology ecosystem, we have been a very long-standing user of Moodle as our VLE for 22 years now. We've contributed to many plugin developments in the community, and our VLE is branded as Loop. And we have a very, very fruitful, mutually beneficial relationship with our hosting provider, who is Catalyst IT Europe. But as well as that, obviously, we link in quite a lot with some of the other Catalyst teams worldwide, including, of course, the New Zealand team and Christina and co in the Mahara team. So a little bit about Mahara at DCU. We have branded it Loop Reflect, so it follows that same branding name as our main Moodle VLE. And the idea of the Reflect is really to stress the importance of reflective practice and using portfolios for reflecting, documenting on your learning journey, and showcasing and evidencing your learning and your growth. The portfolio platform is currently available to all our staff and students in the university, and we have about 10,000 or so users. So roughly about half of the population are using our Loop Reflect portfolios. Interestingly, we have been users of Mahara at DCU for almost 10 years now. We established Mahara as our institution-wide learning portfolio platform in 2016, and this was in response to a direct strategic objective from the university's strategic plan at the time. Our president at the time was very, very eager to ensure that everyone had access to a learning portfolio and would be supported and encouraged to use it. And that foresight and that support of senior management has been really important in embedding and rolling out Mahara over the last 9 years. We have a very, very deep relationship with Moodle. Our Mahara is very much deeply integrated with Moodle. I know a lot of Mahara users out there in the world might use Mahara as a standalone platform, just as in and of itself, but we have it very much tightly aligned with Moodle. In fact, in most cases, I would say it would be very rare for one of our students to just be using Loop Reflect independently. Almost entirely, they would use Loop Reflect for preparing some sort of assignment or some sort of requirement of their program of study. We use the LTI method of integration, which we moved to in the last year or so, and we find is really, really seamless, really, really dependable. So we use the LTI integration for both user authentication and also for students to submit their portfolios as assignments to Moodle. We are currently on, as of the recording of this presentation, we are on version 22.10 of Mahara, which is quite an old version, but we are very much looking forward to moving to 25.04 in the next 2 weeks. What is Mahara used for? I mean, you probably have a lot of similar uses in your own institution. Our students use it a lot for reflective writing and practice, diarising and logging their learning, collating visual artefacts. I mentioned before that DCU is very focused on industry and helping students to get ready for the world of work after university. A lot of our students undertake placements and internships, and they often use Loop Reflect to document and reflect on that learning. We also use it a lot around evidencing competency in practical skills and so on. And we do have a selection of featured portfolios on our help page at reflect.dcu.ie. And I'd encourage you to check out some of the wonderful work that our students have been doing and have been showcasing with Loop Reflect on that help page. A few other kind of things that have been kind of happening lately for us in DCU and in Ireland more broadly, which has kind of helped contribute and help propel us towards the development work that we're currently embarking on. One thing is, and this again is probably very true for many other institutions across the world, but group work is becoming more and more of an important skill to incorporate into our programs at university. Both here in DCU, we're seeing quite a growth in the use of group work and the opportunities for group work in our programs of study. But the same is true in a lot of other institutions here in Ireland. And we obviously, many of us would know that there are great pedagogical merits to group work. It can foster teamwork amongst group members. It can really help communication skills and help students practice communicating ideas and desires and thinking with their teammates. Negotiation, mediation, dispute resolution in some cases, also very important skills to develop, as well as obviously problem solving abilities and working together with group mates to tackle a particular issue or challenge. So lots of really important pedagogical merits. Obviously, from a teacher point of view, aside from that, there are also some organizational merits. Largely, a lot of our lecturers would obviously say that grading one group portfolio or one group work submission is easier than grading 5 individual submissions, or at least doesn't take as much time as grading 5 individual submissions. So certainly there is a kind of a volume issue there that can also be appealing to educators to introduce group work. And portfolio assessment is getting a lot of attention as well in DCU and in Ireland at the moment, because it aligns with a number of both institutional strategic priorities, but also national strategic priorities. Things like universal design for learning, giving students choice and options to engage in multiple means with their learning. Portfolios are really useful for that. Portfolios are truly, an authentic student-centered approach, and we're seeing obviously a drive towards student-centered learning, student-centered assessment approaches in higher education in recent times. And again, academic integrity is another important strategic intent of both our university and the Irish sector more broadly, and portfolios can really help foster that, because students are reflecting and engaging and documenting and showcasing and sharing their personal learning in a portfolio, which helps foster academic integrity. So we have those kind of things happening with group work and with portfolios, and these kind of trends and contextual factors aligning with one another. And as well as that, in DCU over the last few years, we've been embarking on a strategic initiative known as DCU Futures, which seeks to reimagine undergraduate education for an unscripted world. So it seeks to kind of challenge and change and move forward some of the traditional pedagogical approaches we might use in higher education, moving towards skills-based learning, active learning, new forms of pedagogy, challenge-based learning, lots of group work we're seeing in DCU Futures, and so on. And as part of DCU Futures as well, my colleagues in the university have developed a transversal skills framework. So a competency framework in which we say to our students, as part of your program of study at DCU, you will develop some of these transversal skills. And some of the transversal skills that students will be developing are things like teamwork, things like digital literacy, things like communication, etc., all of which group work and portfolios can help to foster. Our DCU Futures initiative is supported by the Human Capital Initiative here in Ireland, which is funding that was made available through Ireland's Higher Education Authority. So onto Mahara group portfolios. Now, Mahara group portfolios are a fantastic feature. They're a particular part of Mahara that I really love. I think they provide great opportunities for students to work together seamlessly and work very well together. And there's great features and benefits, file sharing forums. Group portfolios can be a really great space for groups of students to come together in Mahara. And we're seeing a growth of the use in DCU recently of Mahara group portfolios. And it's been really, really rewarding to help support our staff use collaborative group portfolios with their students. So very much a positive development. We're really, really happy with it. We're here really happy to see our academics wanting to use it with students, and we're really happy to see students engaging so well with collaborative group portfolios. But one thing that we notice is that the submission to Moodle is not as streamlined as it could be, and not as streamlined when you compare it to an individual portfolio assignment. And as well as that, if we have groups set up in Mahara, the educator very often wants those same groups set up in Moodle so they can use the group mode in a feature in Moodle. But again, if there's changes in group membership, which often there is in group work, a teacher has a manual job to do to keep those two groups manually aligned between Moodle and Mahara. So myself and colleagues got to thinking, well, how can we enhance this workflow for staff and students? How can we make it just a little bit easier to use group collaborative portfolios and hopefully enhance the engagement with them? And we were very happy to see in the Mahara roadmap, now this is an earlier version of the roadmap, we were very, very happy to see that group submissions were listed on the roadmap. So we thought, amazing, okay, our thinking here around enhancing group submissions very much aligns with what Mahara want to do in the future. Maybe we can dovetail here and help make this group submission item on the roadmap a reality. And that's what we kind of set out to do. And we set out to do this in partnership. And partnership is a very important value for us here at DCU. And we strongly believe that working together in partnership, we can help advance learning technology, help support digital education, and help improve and further embed open source technologies in higher education. So we partnered up with our hosting providers in Catalyst IT Europe, also have been linking in with Christina and Rob Hill and Robert Lyon in Catalyst New Zealand as well, to sense check our ideas with them. So we've entered into this really kind of useful and fruitful partnership with both Catalyst Europe and Catalyst New Zealand to set forward a proposal for making group submissions happen. And what I'm going to do now is kind of set out some of those objectives of what we want to try and achieve with this development work that we are embarking upon. Essentially, kind of at the broad level, what we want to do is do some development in Mahara and also do some development in the Moodle assignment plugin, which handles Mahara submissions to Moodle. What we want to do is use the available web services to create groups in Mahara based on the Moodle groups and keep that membership updated. So the Moodle groups will kind of drive the Mahara groups, and any changes that need to happen to groups will happen in Moodle and be reflected in Mahara. And then what we want to do then on the other side is, once groups in Mahara go and they work collaboratively together on a group portfolio, that they would be able to very simply and easily submit that to a Moodle assignment in very much the same way that they would very easily submit a individual portfolio to a Moodle assignment. And again, I mentioned the Human Capital Initiative earlier, which supports the DCU Futures Initiative. We're very happy to have availed of some funding via DCU Futures to begin working on this development work. So I'm going to outline now the kind of high-level proposal of what we're trying to do. I will outline it in simple terms that I can understand. I'm not a developer, so I will do my best to try and communicate what it is we are proposing. I do want to obviously say that the wonderful and amazing Sarah Cotton, who is senior software developer in Catalyst IT Europe, has really kind of put her brains and her wisdom behind this to drive this technical proposal, and we're deeply, deeply grateful for Sarah's expertise and her time in this. And as well, Sarah has been liaising with the team in Catalyst New Zealand, Dan and Robert and Christina and so on, to sense check the proposal as well. So again, this kind of partnership model has been really vital to kind of getting us all aligned on what we want to do. So what it is that we want to do essentially, or the kind of the workflow that we envisage will happen is, as I said, the teacher will create groups in Moodle, put the students in the groups, etc. And that will be kind of the driving force for the group membership. The teacher will then go and create a Moodle assignment as they normally would do. And as they're setting up the Moodle assignment, they would select the Mahara submission type, and then they would also select group submission as an option. And once they do that, a new option will appear for the teacher, which will allow the teacher to select some or all of the groups that they wish to submit. Because in some cases, a teacher might have 20 groups, but only 10 of them are going to do the portfolio. So the teacher might only want to select 10 groups, or the teacher might want to select all groups. But the teacher will have that choice to decide all or some groups. And importantly, once the teacher saves that assignment and once they've selected those groups in the group selector, those groups then will automatically be created in Mahara. And then after that, an event listener will be available so that if there are any changes to the group membership in Moodle, they will be updated in Mahara. So that idea of having the Moodle and Mahara groups in alignment will all be done automatically once changes are made to group membership in Moodle. Importantly, because Moodle groups are driving the group membership on the Mahara side, groups can't be edited on the Mahara side, so it sort of protects against a scenario where a teacher might set up groups in Moodle and they get automatically created in Mahara, but then a teacher is maybe in Mahara and maybe accidentally or somehow alters the group membership in Mahara and things get out of sync. So a teacher will be unable to edit any of these particular types of groups in Mahara. Of course, an admin will be able to do it though, because it's always important to have some sort of a fail-safe. Obviously, then once the groups are committed, the assignment and the groups are created and the assignment is set up, the students will work together on their group portfolio, and then when they're ready to submit, they'll go to the Moodle assignment, and just like they would do for an individual portfolio submission, they'll now see a list of group portfolios, whichever portfolios they've been working on, and they will be able to choose one of those to submit. And as happens with the current functionality in Mahara and in the Moodle assignment plugin, a copy of the group portfolio is submitted to Moodle at that time and is locked if locking is chosen as an option. But of course, the original group portfolio remains available for students to edit. The teacher will access portfolios and review them and grade them as normal as they normally would do. And then again, if the archiving function is enabled as well after the teacher has graded the particular portfolio, that copy will be archived after grading. So what is next? As I mentioned, this is the kind of technical proposal that's been put together in partnership with Catalyst Europe and Catalyst New Zealand, and we're undertaking that development now. So the development is underway, and again led by the wonderful Sarah Cotton. We are hopeful that we'll get all of these ideas implemented within the available funding that we have, and again we're hoping through our partnership with Catalyst New Zealand, we hope that it might be integrated in Mahara Core for the next version 2604, and then possibly will be available for Mahara users on version 2504 to be backported. I will obviously say that is subject to quality testing and that the Mahara team in New Zealand is satisfied with the level of quality of the development. And I suppose in essence, we're very much hoping that this will make engaging with group portfolios more attractive and easier for both teachers and for both students, and ultimately lead to a greater uptake of group collaborative portfolios because, as I outlined, we feel they are really beneficial and have great potential for fostering group work and all of the skills that come with group work, and also are a great way for students to reflect and showcase and demonstrate their learning as portfolios do, and as is the great benefit of portfolios. So we're hoping we'll be able to make quite a nice impact with this new development. I'll leave it at that and just say thank you all very much. Good of Mila Mahagwiv. If you have any questions or comments, we'd love to hear from you. Please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can get me by email at rob.lowney@dcu.ie. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rob, for this overview of what the group submission process will be like. We'll keep questions for after the last presentation, but there's certainly been a lot of comments in the chat that is a functionality that a number of people are very much looking forward to. So there will probably still be some very good questions. And so that now takes us so we started in China, we went over to Europe, and now we are concluding our world tour by going to Australia with Dr. Ingrid Sousa and Bill Mezzetti from Monash University.
Well, hi, everyone. I'm Bill Mezzetti, and I'll be presenting with Ingrid D'Souza from our medical faculty here at Monash Uni. And we're excited to sort of share the story of how Mahara came to town here. By town, I mean Monash, and how we tried to bring a little order to our kind of Wild West e-portfolio practice that we've had here. So I'll just go through just quickly, just a bit about Monash itself, the uni. It's the largest uni in Australia. I'm going to go through this pretty quickly because I think a lot of you are familiar with the uni, but we're the largest uni in Australia. We're based in Melbourne with 4 campuses, but have locations in Europe and Asia. We've got 77,000 students and 16,000 staff across 10 faculties. So it can pose a bit of a challenge for us to get all our ducks in a row. So yes, so why a new sheriff? So for a long time, Monash didn't have a single university-wide e-portfolio platform. Each faculty sort of did its own thing. Medicine had a different platform altogether to Mahara. The IT faculty had their own instance, and arts had an instance too, but no two experiences were alike. Some platforms were expensive, some required faculty level support, and none were centrally managed. So while there was an e-portfolio activity, it was messy, it was duplicated, and a pretty inconsistent experience for students. So yeah, I guess eventually leadership decided it was time to consolidate and appoint one platform centrally supported that could better deliver a reliable and predictable user experience at scale across the university.
Thanks, Bill. So where we started, we had a very big tender process, and we finally came up and decided that through that process that we would go with Monash ePortfolios or Mahara in that instance. We had the Faculty of Arts that already had started, as Bill mentioned, with the Bachelor of Media Communications leading the way. And students were mostly looking at employability focus with that one. Faculty of IT had their own Mahara instance, and we in the Faculty of Medicine had a different platform. So the uptake across the university, which, as Bill mentioned, has various different faculties, was quite patchy and highly dependent on local champions.
So we got our budget secured, and we set out to basically take the Mahara instance that Arts had and scale that up into a university-wide solution. So we engaged stakeholders across the faculties. We ran drop-in sessions, training. We had training thanks to people like Christina who came over to do some of that, and Ingrid and others, for learning designers and admin staff, and started an e-portfolio chat group where questions could be not only raised but answered. And we worked with internal identity team to get our user provisioning right, and that proved to be a challenge. But it ensured faculties could manage their own users in a sort of scalable way. And I guess one of our biggest one of our key challenges was definitely the user provisioning. So we had to redesign access pathways to Mahara to work across all faculties, not just the ones that had previously sort of that were existing in the arts faculty. And on the pedagogical side, we were still doing the work. So we're still doing work. Some disciplines immediately get the e-portfolios. Others sort of need support and see how it can align with what their teaching and assessment are doing. Yeah. So I might. You, Ingrid.
So over to me. So that we've got, as we're using this analogy of the sheriff in town, we have three distinctive cowboys. That is the knowledge and skills of different people, and some people are really clever when it comes to taking on technology, and others are a bit unsure and apprehensive, and some are just nonchalant. And then there's everybody in between. So during the implementation phase, particularly at the faculty level, as I'm speaking about, we did need to acknowledge that there was various different people, and each group has had to be tackled in a very different way. Just like our cowboys have different shirts on, so do the academics that we work with closely, and providing them the opportunity to speak is really important.
So yes, so there's a lot of lessons learned in the process. I guess we'll just hopefully be able to share and save people a bit of the pain for that. So the main three things is to start with the champions. There's always early adopters, and they're really great to build from. So arts would be being one of them, and certainly in the MNHS area, our medical area is the other one. To make sure that solution aligns with the broader strategic goals of the uni, especially when it comes to cost and user experience, which is a really big focus for us, make sure that the students have a good experience. And finally, to invest in the people. So communication, community, and continuous support really do make a difference. So yeah, and with that being said, just a shout out to Christina and Ingrid and Carmen for making that really easy.
But looking forward, we have a couple of different ideas, but for now, looking forward, we really want to keep this focus on our students and give them the ability to generate some evidential opportunities that showcase basically their the third point on there, which is their lifelong use and growth. And basically, a recent comment is making learning visible. So this gives our students a real opportunity to make their learning visible. And also, basically, we're currently going through the whole change to artificial intelligence, or rather the need to consider artificial intelligence within assessment tasks. So the role of a programmatic a sort of approach to assessment, I guess, is where we're looking at it. And e-portfolios is definitely being considered as a very big approach to that programmatic assessment. And so, Rob, the whole idea of your group work is really exciting for us, and we look forward to hearing more of your journey as well, because that's certainly one of the ways we'd like to proceed.
Sorry. That's it from us. So just, thank you for listening to our story. We're happy to share if anything that would sort of help others along the journey into like a university-wide platform. So I'm happy to take any questions, or I might just hand back to Christina.
Thank you so much, Bill and Ingrid, for sharing your experience with portfolios, and also how you've come from cowboys where everybody does their own thing, and building an actual town in the Wild West and civilizing the Wild West of Australia, and making sure that there's a bit of law and order in there. Also making it easier for people for students and also staff to actually get started with portfolios, rather than needing to build their own roads or even just finding their own way through the bush and kind of forging their way, trying to find where they can actually settle, where there might be water, where they might be finding this. So I can go on and on with this metaphor, but actually I should not, because we want to hear from the four of you. So now we have time for everybody to ask you questions of Michelle, Rob, Ingrid, and Bill to their implementations. Or if you say, oh, I've done something similar already, let me tell you about that. You're also very welcome to do that. So you can do that in a number of ways, by typing into the chat if you don't want to speak. Or if you want to speak, please raise your hand. There's a little hand icon in the bottom of the middle of your screen, and just tell us about it or ask your question through audio. Earlier the question came. Let's take Elaine's. Did you say you were using AI for portfolio assessments?
I'll take that one. Unfortunately, no, Elaine, we aren't using AI for portfolio assessments as you've asked. What we are trying to do is get people to understand that AI is actually part of assessment, and we need to accept that students need to consider it. So we're acknowledging that there are explicit and implicit uses of artificial intelligence throughout any assessment task. And so if a student does use it for their portfolio in whatever way or fashion, they need to acknowledge that use and be very clear in whatever way that they use it appropriately. So not per se for e-portfolio or portfolio assessment, but more for, I guess, acknowledging it. I hope that answers your question, Elaine.
So just to chime in on the AI, recently I've interviewed a couple of Germans, for the podcast, Christina Stollner and Romy Hörsel from OTH Amberg-Weiden. And one of the fellow colleagues is using AI for the reflections. So they are working with the reflection bot RIF in order to support the reflective processes. What we hadn't yet seen is so much of the how to check whether something had been written by AI. Also, in regards to AI, I do have a statement from Dr. Mandia Mintis and Dr. Wendy Holloway-Brown from Mezzetti University here in New Zealand, who really apologize for not being here because they are grading 200 portfolios that have been submitted to them. And they say that they actually do not have problems with generative AI in plagiarism so much, like many people have with conventional written essays, because what they ask their students to do is create personal video reflections. So they actually see the students speak their reflections, therefore personalizing the learning through multimedia, audio, and also photos quite a bit, and therefore do not run into the problem, oh, this has been written by ChatGPT. But of course, that does not always work in every single context. We did have a question from Isa for TVET. Some courses are required to get multiple evaluators, for example, 3s for assessment. Any samples from the presenters?
I just responded there, Christina, with we're considering smart evidence. So we are just in the process of testing it out, but we have a particular, so I work in the Faculty of Medicine, Nursing and Health Science, which includes disciplines such as paramedicine, and one of their requirements is for the possibility of multiple assessors, but we're just starting our journey on smart evidence and testing it out. So currently the student is the only one that has to reflect and assess themselves, but over time I think that might change. So I guess watch this space, but right now we are just testing it out.
Yeah, so with smart evidence, that is smart evidence version 2 that is available in Mahara or from Mahara 2404 on, where you can set up multiple assessors as part of the framework so that you can have the student self-assessment that Ingrid just mentioned, and then also another 4 assessors who can have staff permissions but don't have to have staff permissions, so that you can regulate that. And that development work has come specifically to support those use cases.
I was saying that we have some anecdotes from students at the moment, so they do like the seamless, or they have found it seamless to work on portfolios together, and they sort of, I think their issues lay with the usual issues with group work around, you know, some students not pulling their weight, etc. But the actual technical piece of working with Mahara group portfolios, they actually found that quite seamless, and they kind of in a lot of cases they enjoyed the process of sort of negotiating with one another how to lay out the page and what artifacts to include and where, and so they enjoyed that kind of creative process. But we will be conducting a research study next year to kind of gather more systematic data. So perhaps in a year's time, I'll have more robust student experiences to share with you.
Thank you so much. And I think everybody is going to look forward to that. Speaking of the group portfolio submissions, the question or the comment had come up earlier, so that Ingrid can't wait to have that. And I'm pretty sure that the functionality will be done way before Mahara 2604 comes out next April, making it then possible to backport it to your version of Mahara. By that time, probably most of you will be on Mahara 2504, meaning that the backporting process should be fairly straightforward, because that will also be the version that DCU is on. So please just speak to your Mahara support partner, or once we have the functionality in Mahara Core, of course, you can also get the code there for yourselves if you don't work with a Mahara business partner in order to put it onto your environment. Everybody's looking forward to new features. So I'm putting a number of links into the chats, and some of you also have a problem with the slides. You can click the first link that says slides in order to see the slides that I'm going to share again. So the next item on the agenda that I wanted to talk about is a little bit Mahara 2504 and an update on the roadmap. Recently, we had run a number of webinars on the Mahara 2504 features, and there is also a release highlights video out there. So I'm not going to repeat that because that would just go way past our 2-hour time limit here. So what I wanted to take this time for is really point you to those resources, so to the release highlights, and really also acknowledge the organizations that have contributed to this release. So we've heard earlier from Michelle and also Rob that they've been working with our team over in Europe in supporting their environments and also doing some feature development or bug fixing. And we do that similarly here also in Oceania with our clients that we work with directly, in particular also some of you that are here on the call through Health New Zealand, Tifatu Ora. And so really massive thanks to everybody who has been contributing ideas to Mahara Core and also putting in additional funding besides the subscription that organizations that actively support the project contribute. So we also have Monash University, from whom you have learned, and they contributed really a wonderful expansion to the CPD functionality that we had been able to put into Mahara Core thanks to Health New Zealand. And I do mention those two specifically because I want to highlight that often functionality gets into Mahara in a way because somebody has an idea, and then another organization picks that idea up and expands it because they see a bigger use case for it. So for the longest time, CPD had been a third-party plugin that turned out we were maintaining in the end because the original developer the original maintainer had retired. And so since we had installed that on one of our sites here in New Zealand on Healthcare Portfolio, it was just easier then to also put it into Mahara Core, make it more maintainable, put all the regular controls that we have on blocks and so on in there. And that work was supported by Health New Zealand. And then Monash University said, well, this looks really good, but we actually need a visual representation of the CPD hours that have been collected, and also we want to add some reflections to it because it is not just showing what students have done, but also reflecting on their learning. And that's how we were then able to add that functionality now in Mahara 2504, thanks to that funding from Monash. And so a number of other universities in particular have also contributed in that way to this release. And of course, everyone who is a subscriber to the Mahara project, a subscriber to Mahara, has taken up a subscription, is a contributor to our open source project because everybody's financial contribution supports the development work that our team in particular here in New Zealand can do, so that we maintain Mahara for you, make bug fixes, put enhancements in there, and generally progress with the platform in order to keep it up to date, keep it contemporary, and make it possible that it does support the portfolio processes that you want to have and want to use. And if you want to do something extra, then those extra things that are not on our roadmap can also be funded or can also support roadmap items, like Rob has shown from Dublin City University, because group portfolios was on there. And so with the funding that we have from DCU on that, we can also speed up that development work, because we can add more developers to that project, so that it's not our team here in New Zealand that does most of the work, but our team in the UK that works very closely with Dublin City University. So in Mahara 2504, you will have a number of new features and also bug fixes, and we've had 3 foci in there. The first one was that we wanted to implement new portfolio features and also a number of new administrative features, because it shouldn't just be the students that see enhancements on the portfolio creation side, but also the administrators, in order to make their life easier. So we always try to see that we implement improvements that help everybody in working with the platform, and they, of course, administrators are very important. We've also made initial changes that were the result of community consultation that we've had over the entire year of 2024. That means all the usability changes, and a number of you have been involved in that work. So also thank you so much for your input there, which has been incredibly important to supplement also the information architecture changes that Rob Hill, our business analyst, has been looking into. And now, of course, we are more in the throes of that. So I'll come back to that just very shortly. So one of the changes that you will see when you go to Mahara 2504 is that we have a new icon pack. So new icons, we are not using Font Awesome anymore, but we switched to material symbols, where we have more control over what the icons look like, and more possibilities of also adding more icons that are more specific to the use cases that we have. So it's great to see already that visual refresh before we go into the full refresh then for 2604. And of course, because that big refresh that a number of you will have already seen, and I did put a link into the chat to the video that shows you some of the mockups, is that we have already laid a number of the technical groundwork items to make the usability changes in Mahara 2604. So oftentimes, all of those technical changes are not really visible, but there has been a lot going on just in the background to use a new templating engine, to unify things a bit more in the code, to standardize more things, to really also prepare us that we can now work on what the future of Mahara will look like next year. And that work is in particular led now, the usability changes by Zheng, our graphic designer / front-end developer, budding backend designer and everything else, because she is dabbling in code like nobody else. And also Doris Tem, who is a developer on our project. And of course, everybody else from the immediate project team in New Zealand is also involved in that, but those two are leading that work along also with our business analyst, Rob. Now, what does that then actually mean for our roadmap? Rob Lowney from DCU had shown us the earlier version of the roadmap, the first version actually. And here we have an updated version that we are launching today here with you in our session. Since you do have access to our slides, I'm not going to go into all the details, but will just highlight a few things for you in that roadmap. So this roadmap now contains a section called Done, where we are putting the items that we have accomplished over the last year and a half since we've launched the roadmap. We are dividing our features and enhancements into 3 sections, namely create, engage, and manage. So create is pretty much everything that is related to portfolio work. So typically something that people do on their own. Engage, that is when you work with somebody else, for example, via group portfolios or smart evidence for assessment purposes. And manage is everything more relating to kind of technical infrastructure and things that we just need to do in order to stay current with the direction in which technology advances. And so we've changed our roadmap a bit, that we are now having 3 areas that are now, next, and later, rather than short, medium, and long-term roadmap. To indicate a bit more, we have the stages that we are currently in. So in the now section, it might not really look like a lot, but each of those items are actually really, really big items. So we have the combining of the journals blocks, so that going from 4 different blocks down to 1 single block, making it easier. That is also one of the things that we look at in general around accessibility, that we've reviewed Mahara with usability and accessibility in mind. And so combining certain block types reduce the sheer number of content items that we have available is very important to us. Another big item is that we do want to make it possible that one page can be used in multiple collections. Currently, that is not the case. It might sound like a very easy change, but it is actually a huge change that also needs very careful testing and trying things out. But we believe it will be a very good improvement for everybody, especially those also wanting to submit portfolios in stages, because currently you need to submit the entire portfolio. But in future, you would be able to submit a single page, but also keep that page in a very big collection. So that has been on our radar for a number of years now already, but it's really, really is very complicated. But now we do have our tech lead, Rob Lowney, working on that. And so we do want to finish that for Mahara 2604. And of course, like with all of these things, if you want to test something, we'd love to have your input for that during the development phase or once we have it finished, if you want to have early access to the functionality in order to give it a whirl with your data and looking at it from your point of view. The next 2 items, implement new portfolio look and implement usability changes, are really that one big focus piece that we have now for Mahara 2604. That we are doing a big revamp of Mahara. What it looks like, what it feels like, where the navigation is, how items are managed within the portfolio, what the overview screens look like, in our mission to make Mahara more easily usable and also therefore support accessibility. And that is not just accessibility in terms of keyboard friendliness and making sure that screen readers can access it, but also looking more into the area that the accessibility standards move into, that it should also work for people with neurodiverse people. So for different skills levels, different levels of cognitive understanding, or also of ways of thinking, and making sure that things are very clear, that they are very consistent across the entire environment, that we are reusing more elements that we already have, rather than always looking, okay, how can we do a new thing very fancy differently, without reviewing it within the entire context of Mahara. So those 2 elements, those 2 items have been started. And it is a massive amount of work that is being done. And we already see what that looks like in small steps. And so there will be quite a lot of iterative changes. And then, of course, for Mahara 2604, all of that will come to you. So you might want to keep that in mind, because of course that also means that any support material that you might have created might need to be updated, because things will have changed around quite a bit. And so it might be good to start that process once you upgrade to a testing or staging site before rolling it out to everybody in your community. And of course, I'm also going to update 800 or 900 plus images in Mahara along with the text that is all in the manual, because we do want to update that for you as well and see that ideally we can also launch it with the refresh of Mahara 2604. Group submissions, we've already talked about. Well, Rob talked about that. And so that is a wonderful example of how something that is on our roadmap is also something that is specifically sponsored by a client. And that is also why we sometimes put those things onto the roadmap, especially when they are these big items like group submissions or the visual progress through a CPD program, because that roadmap is the high-level roadmap of items that we think will be important for the majority of people using Mahara, so students, staff, and also administrators, and also seeing that they are timely. What the roadmap is not is that it is not a definitive work program. So if over time we realize, well, for example, Learning Record Store is not something that universities use anymore in 2 or 3 or 4 years' time. Instead, something else has come up that everybody's using, then we will review the roadmap and might drop an item from it or might add a couple of other high-level items. And as you've already seen, if you've known our previous roadmap, the CPD, for example, was not on that because that had come on once we had established the roadmap, and because it was done primarily by a different team, we can also include it in our roadmap. So all of these items here are more aspirational, especially in the next and the later stages. They are ideas that we have within the team in order to see what we think is important from the conversations that we've had with our community members, and also what we are hearing within the wider portfolio community, the direction in which portfolios are moving. But it can very well still be that we are changing things around on the roadmap. So we are reviewing that on a regular basis, at minimum once a year, to see if the elements that are on it are still relevant, which ones have we done, which ones might we want to do slightly differently, and so on. And so for us, it is really important that we do get feedback from you of what you think, what you need, what of the elements on the roadmap might be of more interest to you or more urgency of you, so that we can keep that in mind when we are setting our development plan in order to see if we do want or need to move things around. And of course, like with Dublin City University, if there is a project or government funding or things like that that you can apply for that can support some of that development work, we would certainly not say no to that. And that can also be through your local development partner. That can also include your own development team in order to make a functionality or a set of features happen in Mahara. Another element that you see here now in the manage area for the now section is the full data references in JSON format. It sounds very technical. It is actually also pretty technical, but what it means is that it will be possible to get an extract from Mahara about all the data that has been stored in there and when it was created or when it was updated. So that is really important for compliance to GDPR, where it should, so the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe, of which many countries have similar regulations now in place as well that shall make it more transparent of what personal information is stored in a software or in an online application in particular. And so what these data references do is give us a list of all the instances where personal information has been used. So pretty much the majority of the blogs in Mahara, the pages, collections, CPD items, forum posts, messages, and the like, so that a person can see, okay, when have they done something in the platform and what might they want to delete. It will not be a copy of the export because you can always export your personal data. It will be more of a reference that allows you then to go back and see what data might need to be deleted. And continually on there is also our accessibility work. We do still want to go for full compliance, also meaning going through an audit for the accessibility standard in order to also make that then available to our organizations. And then, of course, we have a lot of other items on our roadmap that we think or that we already know in a number of cases will be very beneficial for portfolio work, or where we might, in a couple of cases, already have secured additional funding so that we can get started on that work. Now, do you have any questions to the roadmap or Mahara 2504? Earlier, I saw the comment on that. Yes, having one page available in multiple collections is certainly appreciated. And yes, Rob, it's going to be very exciting for Mahara over the coming years because we will be able to, thanks to the subscriptions and also the additional funding that we do get from organizations, will be possible to tackle some of those big ticket items that some of you might have already been looking forward or wanting to have for a wee while. Interested in knowing more about the AI features? Yes, very good question. So currently we are still more on the monitoring side of the AI features rather than on the direct implementation side. We do have the possibility to integrate with Riff, making it possible that it can be embedded into a portfolio page. But what we haven't yet really looked at is how we can hook up a large language model, so something like ChatGPT, to Mahara itself in order to either support the writing of text or not, or sending the portfolios of students off to a large language model and or to a text analyzer, and then providing instructors, say, a summary of what students in general have written in their portfolios, or drafting feedback for individual students. So there's a number of possibilities that we can look into. And there are a couple of projects in Germany in particular. One did finish this year, and another one is still going, where there are quite interesting ways of integrating AI into portfolio practice, because of course it does look different from how you would be using a large language model, for example, in the learning management system. So I did put a link now into the chat that is to the recording of the workshop that we had in September of last year, where a number of those projects were presented. And so right now we are still in the investigation phase, in the information gathering phase. What ideas of how to use AI in portfolios would actually be the most important ones or the most interesting ones, where we might want to look into supporting those projects more, or waiting until those projects are done, because there's a lot of research going into that at the universities, and then seeing how we can integrate the results also into Mahara. And earlier last couple of weeks ago, we've seen a case where AI was used to write a reflection. And of course, that can be a big concern, especially for those with large classes or with a lot of portfolios to go through, where it might not always be very obvious if AI had been used to write text or to supplement it more. On the other hand, it can be a very good accessibility enhancement and accessibility support for learners. And so there's still a lot to learn and experiment about what are the beneficial uses of AI in portfolio practice in particular, and how can we make good use of them, and which areas might be a bit more troublesome. Is it possible to use some AI to design the e-portfolio? At the moment, it is not possible in Mahara, but that is definitely an area where AI can also be used, that could be used in the future, that you look more into the design aspects, so that you might get a template or a basic outline already created through the assistance of AI, or to make sure that also the color contrast is correct, or that all images have captions, that videos all have transcripts, but that you can also still correct the transcript. So a lot of those assistive technologies that don't necessarily have a lot to do with writing text itself, but can be very beneficial in putting together a portfolio that is also reflective of the practice. So if you want to have a look at the roadmap or want to have a specific session on the roadmap, please do let me know, because we can certainly have a session where we talk through more closely around the ideas that we have on here. Some of them are still quite nebulous, especially when they are far off in the future, because it's bigger ideas that we know had come up in conversations, but we don't yet have detailed specifications. And so if you do want to give us any further input, any ideas or feedback on those items, if they are of interest to you, then that would be fantastic, because then these items can also inform our further thinking on it. Now for Mahara 2604, I did put the link to the mockups video, and all that work that you see in there is by Yvonne, who turned the wireframes that Rob had created into something visual so that we can see what Mahara 2604 might look like. And so in that version, the refresh really looks into three big elements for us, and why we also want to do that refresh. And that is primarily that we are more consistent across our main screens. Currently, when you look at the portfolio overview page, when you look at the journals page, when you look at the groups portfolio page, when you look at groups themselves, they all look very different. They have sometimes cards, sometimes links, sometimes squares, sometimes rectangles, sometimes something different. And so a lot of reorienting is necessary to find your way in each area. And so what Mahara 2604 is going to do, it is going to unify all of these screens so that we have much more consistency in there, so that you always know the title is on the left, then additional information is coming in on the right-hand side are action items and buttons to click or links to go through. So really making it consistent so that we do not have that cognitive overload as much as we have it at the moment. And I think a lot of software products actually suffer this, because we have to remember that the development of Mahara started almost 19 years ago. Well, actually, it started 19 years ago, because the first commit was made in September 2006. But of course, before that first commit could be made, somebody already needed to write some code. So we are already in those commit stages right now, when development work had already begun. And so over those 19 years, ideas had come up. We wanted to experiment with new features in Mahara, with new ideas of working online. There was a time when everything was a card or everything was a square, and then clicking on squares and going from there. And so over time, what we hadn't really done is do such a regular information architecture review in order to see, do we actually need to consolidate things a bit more? And so we've now taken that time to look back in order to look then forward to the future of what is currently preferred in online spaces, or also what do most people use quite a bit these days. And can we develop Mahara in that direction in order to make it easier for people to use familiar concepts and transfer them into Mahara and know instantly, it's a table. I can click here, I can do X, Y, Z. It's another table. I can do exactly the same thing, versus everything being somewhere different. And so now working with Rob, who had set that direction for our wireframes for the general look of Mahara, not the graphic design one, that's Ivan's department, but the information architecture, the information layer, that will also help us in future to always refer back to that in order to review new features that will go into Mahara based on that. And then, of course, also I envisage over the years that we do have in intervals more of a general look back again in order to see, are the concepts that we are using in Mahara still current and active. The refresh will also mean that we will have new visual elements for a more contemporary look, and also that all really culminates into improved workflows, especially for a more intuitive navigation of the site. So that ideally you won't have to do so much introductions to your students or to your staff, because it is just a bit easier to get started because we are laying out those pathways, and also what something is called or where something is positioned makes it easier for people to just get started directly with 2604. And so if you want to learn more about all of that, we do have our community forums to which you all can sign up. In the description field, please do make sure that you do say that you want to contribute in the forums so that we set up your account and don't send you back to your own Mahara site when it is not clear whether somebody wants to create a portfolio or contribute to conversations. We do also have a specific usability forum where from time to time we are asking questions to get specific input from our community on particular features where there are quite a few different opinions possible, and also where we just sometimes really need to know how a particular feature is used or whether it is still used at all, because of course we can also look into reducing some functionality in Mahara that might not be used anymore by anybody. So please do take advantage of our forums there, and then come along to our events. And the links to both of these are also into the chat earlier. I had posted all the links directly in one post. We do run regular events, mainly our Mahara Ask Me Anything sessions or Ask Mahara Anything sessions. They are taking place on a monthly basis and are geared towards Europe, Africa, and then also Asia and Oceania in the evening, and the others are more for the Americas or for night owls in Europe and Africa. Our Mahara Ask Me Anything sessions are very small. it is always good when we just have a small group of people there as well. It don't have to be a lot of people in there, because that is your time to ask your specific questions. And sometimes when there's only 1 or 2 people in there, we can also do a screen share and look at the administration area in particular and walk you through your questions. Or if it is a larger group, there can also be a bit of show and tell from the people that are coming. So every Ask Me Anything session, every AMA is very different and gives you the chance to talk with us from the main development team, and also gives us the chance to get to know you and your use cases better. And of course, I've already dropped a number of links to podcast episodes into the chat. I'm really stoked that I've had the chance to already talk with 77 practitioners since the middle of 2022 and interview them for the podcast, where we are sharing the stories. So similar to the ones that have been shared today by Michelle and also by Bill and Ingrid, and also Rob's colleagues were on the podcast to learn more about how portfolios are being used at organizations. And doesn't have to be the entire organization's use, can just be one particular use case, in order to share that with the rest of you so that you can also learn from each other, get an idea maybe of what you would like to try, or find out about resource materials that you might be able to adopt. So please do check out the podcast. And of course, I'd also very much like to invite you to have a chat with me that we can record for the entire community. And recently, Courtney, our marketing executive, has also started turning these podcast episodes into written case studies. So if somebody prefers the written format, then we have those available as well. Now we still have a few minutes. If anybody has a question or comments, we have time. We'll also be putting the case studies on the mahara.org website to make it a bit easier to just see all the Mahara related ones. But since many of you are using learning management systems like Moodle or Totara, you might also be interested in reading up on the other things that are happening here at Catalyst and how we are supporting organizations in their learning journeys. See a couple of people typing. Thank you, Ingrid. And I really appreciate everybody who has shared their portfolio story today, because that is yet another point for us to know what is going on at your institution. And maybe a question for those that don't have a question. Would you like to see, would you like to have another Mahara Hui Online? Last year, we had our first local Mahara Hui in a number of years after the pandemic. And there we had discussed that we roughly have a 6-monthly cycle where we have one event in person here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and one event roughly 6 months later online for those that can't travel. So that it is possible to have an in-person event where we can just chat more easily, have a bit more time, do it more for longer than 2 hours, but also throughout the year give other people the chance to attend an online version of that, like today's, in order to widen the possibilities of people attending, like we have had today with attendees from different countries. Yes, if we can sort the issue with the presentations. Yes, Elaine, that will be something. And if that's okay with you, I will be getting in touch with you so that we can have a trial session, or whether we need to look into using a different platform if we can't figure out what is going on here. We'll look into that. So it looks like an online version is still wanted. And also for those of you who are not from Aotearoa, New Zealand, who might not be able to attend an in-person version, you can organize your own Mahara Hui online or your own in-person Mahara Hui. And if you have any questions for that, please do let me know. We try to keep the admin overhead for organizing these half-day, three-quarter-day, or 2-hour events low, so that it is possible for somebody to do it in contrast to organizing an entire conference. So if you do want to host one yourself, please do get in touch so that we can have a chat. And I've also been stealing that idea from our UK team, who have 2 events per year, one in person and one online. Because in the past we've had our Mahara Hui, more like conferences, 2-day events, and then a Hackfest. But of course, now with lots of budget cuts and people not being able to travel, there might be some other ways of getting together. And so I've seen their events working really, really well. So I wanted to try that also for our region here in order to give people the opportunity to come together. It looks like we do not have any more questions. So that means that we are coming to the end of our session today. And I'd like to release you now into the rest of your day, or actually into the actual start of your day if you're looking at the UK and to Ireland. And so here's our closing karakia. Kia whakaira te tapu, kia wātea ai te ara, kia turuki whakataha ai, kia turuki whakataha ai, haumia huie tai kie. Thank you so much, everybody, for coming, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.